Elfego Esparza is a young bass, born in Texas, who's making his American debut with the San Francisco Opera in a series of roles. Dr. Bartolo in Barbieri di Siviglia, Dufault in Traviata, Melitone in Forza del Destino, and the Sacristan in Tosca. Mr. Esparza is one of the large group of young American singers whose careers have begun in Europe. Singers for whom, indeed, opportunities to learn their craft don't really exist in this country, though the musical, as distinct from the professional training here, is second to none. Wouldn't you say?
Yes, very much so. The best singers that I've heard over there in Europe have been American trained. And although I went over there as a semi-professional and did study in the Conservatory of Brussels, where I got my diploma, and also in the Academy of Music in Vienna, my vocal training, however, I continued with an American who was over there. A man by the name of Sergei Radomsky, who was in Los Angeles for a while. And he's now living in Europe. As a matter of fact, he liked it so much over there that after 5 years he lost his citizenship.
Would you say that European singers at the same stage are less well trained musically and better trained for the stage than you were?
Well, I wouldn't say they're not as well trained. I think they're trained too fast and too young. And therefore, they're not mature to go into the profession. Let's say 20 or 21 to sing all these big parts. I know young basses with 22, 23 years old doing King Heinrich in Lohengrin, and doing King Philip, and doing all the Wagner Ring, you know. That's ridiculous. By the time they're 25, they sound like old men. By the time they're 30, they're done.
Is there a shortage of young, good vocal material then in Europe? Why are they so eager to get American singers on?
Well, you see, the war took out a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of health out of these people, and they suffered a lot of hungers and sickness and so on and so forth. Whereas American singers, and the one over there, they're full of enthusiasm. They're not pessimistic like they are over there. They're optimistic. They have good voices. They have good training. They've never suffered, and they're fresh.
Well, you found yourself in a position to learn your craft.
Yes, I was ready to start learning my craft without hurting myself. I was 24, just turned 25 when I did my debut over there with Leporello, and then came the Barter Bride, and then came Turandot, and then came Don Pasquale, Elisir d'Amore, then came Osmin, then came Così fan tutte, then came Ramfis, then came Simone Boccanegra Fiesco, and so on and so forth.
You say then came. You made your debut as Leporello, and presumably you were a success.
Yes, I had a very big success, especially with my diction. Everybody came backstage talking German to me, and I didn't speak a word of it. I had learned it like a parrot, you know. And it was so that the day after my premiere, they gave me a new contract with more money, which amounted to about $150 a month. Because most of us Americans who go over there want to get just started and start singing. And after a while, if they like us, then prices start going up, you know, and after you get...
How did you prepare for your stage debut, and what did you do after Leporello to prepare for this great series of roles that seems to me to...
Well, right after the premiere, you start rehearsals on something else. As a matter of fact, during the stage rehearsals of Leporello, I was already having musical rehearsals for Turandot, Timur.
So in other words, you had a kind of natural instinct for the stage.
Yes, I had a natural instinct for the stage, but we worked on stage. You know, you're working on the stage 1 month or 3 weeks or 6 weeks on a certain opera, and then you have time off once in a while to have an hour a day or more to work on another opera musically. In other words, while you're staging one opera, you're preparing another one musically. And you finish with the staging, you have the premiere, and the one you've been preparing musically, then you start going on the stage with that. And then you start preparing another musically, you know, and it's a big circle.
In other words, it's the principle of the repertory company.
Repertoire, yeah.
But we don't have anything like that in this country, and it's impossible, in other words, for young singers to learn as many roles.
Unfortunately not, no.
On the stage.
Because what I've done over the... Well, let's say what I did the first 4 or 5 years, it would have taken 15 years or 20 to do here. I sang 10 roles a season, you know, pretty good roles, 12.
Is it, in fact, possible to join a leading opera company in this country except as a featured performer and really get anywhere?
I didn't quite understand
Is it, do you think, possible to join a leading American opera company, let's say the Metropolitan, the Chicago company, the San Francisco company, as anything but a featured performer and get anywhere? McCracken, for example, left the Metropolitan because all he was able to do was Parpignol.
Well, yeah, well, you see, he didn't have the routine and the repertoire. You know, you come to an opera like the San Francisco Opera, and the eyes of the musical world are on it. And if you're expected to do a Samson in 3 or 4 or 5 days, or in a week, or even 10 days, or even 2 weeks, you know, then you have to know something about it before you came here. Because when you come here, those 2 weeks is a matter of putting it together with the other artists, and not a matter of learning the role.
Yes, and the point is he could never have learned that
if he had
stayed at the Metropolitan.
No, because the Metropolitan, they kept using people who already knew this. You see, I was supposed to go to the Met. When I was 21 years old, I had big people behind me. People from Texas by the name of Lapham. There's also Laphams here in San Francisco. It's the same family, the Texas company. And they wanted to push me into the Met. And I went to the Met and I spoke to them. And I told Colonel Lapham, who's the brother of Roger Lapham, the earlier mayor of San Francisco. And he said, he wanted to push me into the Met through his help. But I told him, I don't want to audition. I just want some good advice. And the guy at the Met said, well, that's very smart, because you can't compete with these people who have been doing these roles for 20 years. Now, they've been singing these roles when I was born, practically, you know. So I asked him, well, how do you get this experience? He said, well, the only place to get it is in Europe. So through advice from people at the Met, I went to Europe to get this experience.
Where was the debut role?
It was in a town called Gelsenkirchen. It's in the Ruhr Valley. It's a town that just spent $5 million for a new opera house. It's a town that pays its artists 12 months out of the year, and they do all the first-class repertoire. Of course, they also do operetta, they also do ballet, they also do straight drama, and so on and so forth.
In other words, it's a place that's very much smaller than a lot of the cities around here.
Well, it's a place I never heard of, but it's 500,000 people or more.
500,000 people with a full-time opera house.
Yes, but of course I must say it's also one of the richest, because it's right in the middle of the Ruhr Valley. I think they have something like 80 mined entrances or exits in the city limits.
So after Gelsenkirchen, you went presumably to larger German opera houses.
Yes. While I was still in Gelsenkirchen, I guested some and did a few small Festspiele, and then went on to bigger theaters.
Did they want you to do the same roles that you'd been doing in Gelsenkirchen, or did they want you to do new roles?
Some were the same roles, some were new roles.
And you had to sing all kinds of bass roles, because in this country, don't we tend to divide basses into two kinds?
Yes.
Comic basses?
Yes. Well, they do that over there also, and with reason, because there are the serious bass, what they call over there the standing bass, one that just stands and sings. And then they have the character bass, who does character parts, and then they have the comic bass. Well, if the comic bass, who's a good actor, doesn't have enough voice, let's say, to do a serious role, well, he can't do a serious role. But if there is a bass who has enough voice to do any of these different types of roles, and if he can act them, well, then he can do all of them.
The smaller houses of Germany, though, probably couldn't afford to have too many basses. The same bass would have to do comic roles and serious roles?
They have, even in Gelsenkirchen, they had a serious bass, they had a character bass, they had a basso buffo, and they had second singers for these things also.
But you, despite the fact that most of the roles you're doing in San Francisco are comic roles,
yes,
have done in Europe, have you not?
Yes. And
serious
I'm still
roles.
doing it. I've done the whole Ring from Wagner, all the Verdi roles.
And they do ring in the smaller German opera houses.
Yes, a town like Bremen, who's about 700,000 people, I think.
An industrial town in the north.
Well, yes, it's an industrial town. It's a port. There's a big port there, Bremerhaven, which is near there. But Bremerhaven even has its own theater also. But in Bremen, I did the whole Ring of the Nibelungen, including Hagen, which I only did a couple of times. But then there was also Rosenkavalier there that I did there. And
that's one of the longest based roles.
Yes,
surely.
that with together with Gurnamans in Parsifal are about the longest bass roles there.
Do you sing Gurnamans?
No, I've never sung Gurnamans. I've studied it, but I've never had an opportunity to sing it because it only comes a couple of times during Easter. You know?
Is that true in Germany as well as this country, where if it comes at all, it usually
comes in Easter. They do it a couple of times maybe during the season, but not more than 4 or 5 times during the whole season.
So the opportunities for doing it have probably prevented you from studying it
Yes,
or anything
yes,
else.
yes.
Well, where did you go to then after Towns
Well,
and
after
Ruhr?
Bremen, I guested around. I went to Munich, I went to Hamburg as a guest and everything, but I was looking for a place where I could live also.
Now, when you went to Munich and Hamburg, did you go with the same roles?
Well,
did they want you as a bass singer, or did they want you because you had a success as Osmin or Ox?
That's the reason why they got me. They got me because I had a success as Osmin, and they got me for Osmin. I had a success as Leporello, and they got me as Leporello in these bigger theaters, see? And then I guested there several times, but then I took a bigger contract in Düsseldorf.
Are you now a permanent member of the company?
I am this season. After I leave here, I go to Düsseldorf, where I will sing 40 evenings. After that, I'm going to be living in Zurich, in Switzerland, where I'll sing my 40 evenings and have an apartment there.
You will be singing in Zurich.
Yes.
Who has taken over from Graf?
Well, the director in Düsseldorf.
Who is?
And his name is Professor Juch, Dr. Juch. And he wanted me absolutely to go with him to Zurich, and I wanted to go very much to Zurich. I got married in Zurich, and I love Zurich. It's a beautiful country, and you pay less taxes in Switzerland.
And sing more roles. What roles will you be singing in Zurich?
I've been doing the whole repertoire, from Don Pasquale all the way to Hagen, if I please.
You'll be doing Hagen again? Do you think you want to?
I think so. When I did it, I wished I hadn't, because it's very difficult. But this was in 1959. And if I do this again, it'll be in 1964, 5, 6. And I want to get my teeth into it again.
What do you think the difficulties of the role are? A matter of stamina? Strain?
It's a matter of sheer maturity, vocal maturity. You know, where you won't hurt your voice if you sing for 20 minutes full blast with a huge chorus, like the Mannenchor, you know. And if you get a young voice, and bass voices don't mature before they're 35, and you get an immature voice at 29 or 28 or 27, 26 or even 30, 31, you know, and just it's just like a good Cadillac. If you run it 150 miles an hour from the beginning, the first day you got it, after a month it's going to burn out, you know.
That's sort of analogy that makes sense.
It's the same thing with the voice. If you use it that way on big roles like that, it's going to be worn out.
Who is the musical director you've been working with?
Well, I've been working with several. Of the Germans, I did a lot of work with Wallberg. He's a young man who is very musical and a very wonderful conductor. I did The Ring with him, Rosenkavalier, Figaro, The Marriage of Figaro, Leporello, a lot of things.
At Düsseldorf?
No, this was in Bremen and in Hamburg, and he guests around a lot. And with Erede, I did an opening of the season in Düsseldorf a couple of years ago, with Osmin, and he liked me very much, and he travels a lot in Europe, and he has taken me with him to Italy, to Holland, and different places where he wanted me to do certain roles that he felt nobody could do better.
You were supposed to sing, in fact, in Don Pasquale at the Edinburgh Festival under him.
Yes, I was supposed to go with him to San Carlo, Napoli, and rehearse Don Pasquale, and then have the premiere in the Edinburgh Festival. But then this opportunity to come to San Francisco developed, and he was very kind and didn't insist that I keep my word of going with him, and he realized I wanted to come home and wanted to make my debut in America, and I had some very good roles to debut in, so I came to America.
And Fernando Corena took over the part instead.
Yes, well, that sounds a little bit funny. Fernando Corena is a great artist.
Well, I think it shows the kind of casting that Maestro Erede had in mind. So
Yes, it made me feel kind of good.
Who is the musical director that you'll be working under in Zurich now?
Well, I'll be working with Nello Santi in Zurich. I'll probably do Elisir d'Amore, Dulcamara will be one of my first parts over there. But this is season after this. I was saying after next because in between I'm doing a big new stage in the Rosenkavalier in Düsseldorf.
Who is leading that?
I don't know. I don't know.
It's a full new production, right?
Yes, Varnay sings a lot over there, Astrid Varnay. And they wanted to get Karl Böhm, the big German conductor. Dresden, actually, he's now in Vienna. And he's the best. Of course, he would come and only do a week's rehearsals and 2 or 3 performances, and then somebody else would take it over.
Would there be adequate musical preparation for a role of that kind? It's a very long, very difficult role.
Yes. Well, I sang it before with much preparation. After I had learned the role perfectly, I went for 1 month to Vienna to learn Viennese.
Did you study?
And I learned it in Vienna with a man who'd been teaching the best Baron Ochses for the last 25 years.
Who is that?
He's the musical supervisor of the Staatsoper in Vienna. His name is Dr. Heinrich Schmidt.
Heinrich Schmidt.
He also does the Festspiele in Salzburg.
Because every Baron Ochs apparently goes to Vienna to study the dialect.
Yes.
Mr. Langham, who was here in San Francisco and sang Ochs last season, studied with a famous Viennese singer, Alfred Jäger.
Yes, I heard Mr. Langham. He's excellent. And his Viennese is really amazing. Really.
They didn't, in fact, like his singing of the role in places like Berlin, I think, or Hamburg, because they found it too refined.
Well, it's with Baron Ochs, it's a matter of taste, and it's a matter of how you look at it.
Do you do an uncut version?
I have done all the Rosenkavalier, but they don't do it often. They cut it up. It's too long.
It's Baron Ochs is the one, however, whose role suffers, and a lot of the Baudry.
Yes. There's, for instance, in the big scene with the Marshalling, they cut off that big Erzählung. They cut off a lot of that, but it's really precious text. What's being cut off? It's too bad. And of course, there's a lot of that loud music kills a lot of the text, because with the big orchestrations and everything, it's impossible to project every word. You know, because if you project it too loud, then you're ruining the meaning by being too loud. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe some of the audiences would be shocked if they could hear it, even at this late day.
Yes, but it's so poetically said, no matter how risque, that anybody in his right mind would accept it with a light-hearted, let's say.
When you prepare a role like Ochs, do you go first, or did you in fact go first to the Hoffmann-style libretto? Did you study it from the libretto outwards, or do you try to get music and?
I started with music and then I got so interested in the music that I picked up the libretto to see if I had missed anything, you know.
But you try to do them together. Does that seem to you important? And if so,
no, it actually is not. It's not that important. I just did it out of curiosity. I just wanted to see if Strauss had used it all. And he, most of the time, he was very good about using everything that people gave him. That's why his operas are so long. I just did his Schweigsame Frau, which he did with Stefan Zweig. And it's a marvelous opera and a marvelous role, just like Baron Ochs. And they have an ending of the second act, similar to the second act of, you know, the mir keine Nacht hier zu lang, you know. They have a thing like that in the Schweigsame Frau with a low D flat. If you can imagine, it's only a half a tone from the low C, like a tenor would say a half a tone from the high C.
Where did you do the Schweigsame Frau?
I did this in Düsseldorf.
So that's a complicated opera.
Very complicated. That was one of my biggest successes in Europe. I had a tremendous success with it. Dr. Rennet, whom we did the barber here, did it in Salzburg a couple of summers ago with great success. It's a magnificent opera to stage.
That was the Hans Hotter production.
The Hans Hotter, yes.
But it's in an opera house like the Düsseldorf one that it's possible to present works which are so complicated musically. And it wouldn't be in a repertory company in this country, I don't think.
Oh, it would be very difficult.
Very difficult to do.
Because you have to get so much ensemble on it. You have to have the people there for at least to get them together musically, and there's a lot of speaking also, and there's cannons going off and all kinds of things, It would take a month to get it together musically right, but even when the people are already prepared. And then to really do the thing justice, you'd have to stage it about 3 or 4 weeks. Because every act is a little different than the other, and it's the same people. I won't go into the story, but it's delicious.
Well, one of the sad things about opera in this country is that it's very difficult to perform works of that kind, and the repertory is narrow as a result. A lot of works require too much preparation.
Yes, you see, preparation costs money and time, and without the subsidy, I mean, Düsseldorf gets $2 million for the opera, after owning their own house and everything. So it's no problem.
And
for
a
them.
solid backlog of subscribers too.
Yes,
who
that
will
also,
take the unfamiliar
yeah.
operas with the familiar ones.
Oh, they'll have to take them. They don't ask them, because the people that pay is the government. I mean, what they pay is a minute. I mean, they go for 25 cents for a mark. Or a mark 50. You can go see the biggest stars and the biggest operas if you want to stand. The most expensive seats are about $3. So that's a span from 25 cents or 50 cents to $3 for the most expensive seats.
And they're used to the idea of having novelties every season, aren't they?
Oh, yes.
Just the same way if you had a
Düsseldorf,
movie house.
they do a world premiere practically every season. In Düsseldorf, they have a week in the spring or 10 days where they do every day they do a modern opera that's in the repertoire. They call it the 20th century week or something like that.
Well, it must be very exciting for an artist to be able to
Oh, it's
appear
very
in all
interesting, very interesting.
Well, you're lucky then. You're able to have that and have our kind of opera seasons too.
Well, it takes a long time, however, to do that. I've been struggling now, studying and singing since I was 17. And I just turned 34. And I've never been in the army. I was 4F. I have my 4F card framed. And so that means I'm 17 years in this profession without thinking of anything else. Summer, winter, spring,
And
night or evening.
Comparatively
eating,
short career, really, isn't it, when you consider
yes.
what other people in other careers are able to do?
Yes, but you see, within 17 years, if I had a half a good brain, I could also be a doctor. Not worry whether I'm a horse or not.
You are in the Barbieri di Sevilla.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Wish you good luck here and when you return to Düsseldorf and Zurich.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much.
Senti il codice dove si volgere, se tutto l'indice dove si leggere, con un equivoco con un sinonimo, quanti garboglio si troverà. Senti il codice dove si volgere, se tutto l'indice dove si leggere, con un equivoco con un sinonimo, quanti garboglio si troverà. Qualche garbuglio si troverà, si troverà. Tutta Siviglia conosce Bartolo, il Virgo Vicaro, vinto sarà. Tutta Siviglia conosce Bartolo, il Virgo Vicaro, vinto sarà. Il Virgo Vicaro, vinto sarà. Il Virgo Vicaro, vinto sarà. Vinto sarà.